Good evening, this is Robert Sidell. This is the Gateway Show on live every Sunday evening from 6 to 7 p.m., broadcasting on the number one talk station in Las Vegas, also simulcasting on Facebook. And tonight we're also simulcasting on YouTube, so it's going to be kind of fun. We're working on a little bit of new technology, so I hopefully it'll work the way we want it to. Well, people, my friends that are listening, we're on this journey together. We're sort of playing with new technology all the time. When I first started doing this show, it was purely just the radio, and it was on AM and FM, and that was one whole set of scenarios. And then now it's on AM, but it also simulcasting on Facebook, and that's a whole new world that started just a few years ago. And it's kind of fun because anybody can listen to this free of charge, basically anywhere in the world. So it's a fun experience. So this show, for those of you, somebody just tuning in, maybe that hasn't heard this before, it's really about getting it's an oasis of renewal, really. It's a chance to kind of let go of some of the burdens we get used to carrying in life, because so much of it, the burdens of life, it can weigh us down so much that we no longer are really enjoying the life experience. And then not only that, it starts to suppress our creativity and all sorts of negative things start to happen. So the idea of this show is to kind of remind you, hey, look, we're on an amazing divine journey. I'm humble about what it exactly all means, but I'm quite convinced it is divine. And there's a plan for each of us, I'm quite sure also, although it doesn't always seem obvious. And so tonight, I'm really excited. I'm interviewing Sean Kanan, and Sean's a very interesting young man. He's a lot younger than me anyway. Well, he looks young anyway. So you look young and you are young.
Thank you.
So there you go. But it's he's got a history. A lot of you will have known him or come to know him through his work in the whole Karate Kid world. Is that I don't know, is that the right way to put it? In your in
Sure,
your
the Karate Kid universe. Yeah,
universe, yeah, universe. That's what we have nowadays, right? Universes. My kids are
right.
always talking to me about that. Oh, it's this universe, or that universe, or they broke the rules of a universe, right? No, kids don't like that. You can't do that in this universe. Um, but so you were, was your first, and this, and I apologize, I know a little more about this world. I know you're in Cobra Kai, and you
Mhm.
play a very major role in that. I don't know, did you have a role before that, or did you start in Cobra Kai?
No, I'm actually reprising my role from the Karate Kid 3. The
Oh, okay.
character Mike Barnes was the bad guy in Karate Kid 3, and that's the same role that I play in season 5 and 6 of Cobra Kai.
I see. Okay, that's what I kind of thought that was the case, but I just didn't want to say the
Yeah.
wrong thing. So you've had it's kind of been. I have to say, it's probably what most actors are looking for, right? It's been. I think it is. Let me ask you: is it what most actors are looking for to get some ongoing, continuous work like that?
Well, I've been very fortunate that I've worked ongoing more or less for the last couple decades. My other job is that I work on The Bold and the Beautiful playing Deacon Sharp, and that's a role that I was privileged to first assume in 2000. So this is my 25th year off and on playing that role. As far as Cobra Kai goes, it's not very often that an actor has the opportunity to reprise a role from 37, 38 years back. So it's been an incredible blessing, and it's been a lot of fun.
Strange. Maybe it's not strange, but I actually remember watching these shows, and I remember the character you played, especially in Cobra Kai, and you were kind of the. I guess is it fair to say the bad guy in that, or how is that? How did that translate out?
Well, I think he was a very bad guy, and I think that there was some evolution over the course of the 35 years from when we last saw the character, and I think Mike Barnes managed to figure a few things out, and while still rough around the edges, wasn't really a bad guy by the time he got to Cobra Kai.
Well, you're actually that's the second thing I was going to say to you. There was nuance in that. I remember
Hmm.
that much about it, that
Yeah,
there was nuance in that, and that he started to actually become a nicer person, right? I mean, that's my
right.
recollection anyway.
Yeah, I think like in life, I think very few things are monolithically one thing or the other are good or bad. I think that it's the nano shades of gray in people's personalities that, as an actor, I find interesting to play. Good people occasionally do bad things. Bad people occasionally do good things, and I like to find the humanity, whether a character ostensibly seems like he's a quote unquote bad guy. What are the parts of the personality that allow some redemption and some empathy?
So what is that? I'm just kind of curious. So you obviously meet people who recognize you. I recognized you even when I saw your face, which for me to say that is anyway. So and yet you played a role that, at least in parts, at certain times, was the less popular character. What is that like being in that kind of role? I'm just out of curiosity.
You mean playing a bad guy?
Yeah, that's the way I was
There
trying to
is
be
there,
a
but
nicer way of saying it.
there's an incredibly strange phenomenon that even though Mike Barnes was the bad guy, he's really kind of a beloved character. The audiences really like the character. I tried to make the character a lot of fun. Bad guys don't think they're bad guys. They think they're going after what they want. It's just the actions they choose to achieve their results are what are reprehensible. But I tried to play it that, Mike Barnes was really kind of enjoying himself on that journey. And I think it resonated with the fans. It's really fun to have an entirely new generation of people um, come up to me and recognize me from Cobra Kai. These are kids that some of them didn't even know there was source material from Karate Kid movies. They just found this show, Cobra Kai, that they liked. And then their parents usually say, well, this came from these movies from 30 some years ago. So there's an interesting sociological phenomenon, which is it's now multi-generational. You've got the parents that watch Cobra Kai for the nostalgic value of having loved the films, and the kids who watch it because it's all new to them and they like the younger kids that are on the show. And I find that in a time and an age when a lot of kids have difficulty talking to their parents, here's something that's able to unite them together and bring them together for the time that they're watching it together. And it's almost like a bridge, a bonding thing.
So, what is it like when people? I'm just kind of curious. I mean, what's it like when people come up to you and recognize you? Is that a good feeling or?
Yeah, generally it's a good feeling. I mean, I've been doing this for like 40 some years, and I did Karate Kid 3 early on in my career, and it was it was an international film. And so that's been an experience that has just been a part of my life for more than it hasn't been. Um, and I don't know. I like to think I'm kind of the same guy that I've always been. I mean, I like to think it doesn't go to my head. I see it as a conduit to be able to meet new people. It kind of gives them a way to break the ice with me and come and say hi. And I generally enjoy meeting people. And so for me, I think it's been a positive thing.
Well, I guess that's sort of how I met you.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so
And you were talking about like how life is a journey, and it's if you remain open to the positive aspects of it, you find wonderful serendipity all the time. And you and I met each other yesterday in Las Vegas at an event that we were at, and we hit it off and found out that in a lot of ways we're kindred spirits about things that we think and believe. And now here we are, uh, just over 24 hours later, and we're doing this together and building on our relationship. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts of life. You don't always know what's coming down the trail, but if you remain open to the possibilities of it being good and positive, most times it is.
yes, well, I'm a big believer that eventually what makes your life work are your network of friendships.
Absolutely.
And it's really what makes it work because especially as you get a little bit older, and you're still, I don't know whether I put you quite in that category yet or not, but the bottom line is, but it's still true our whole life though, isn't it? It really is true. It doesn't matter how old we are.
Well, I think they become more valuable because it's a bit like an upside down, well, it's a bit like a pyramid. When you're in your 20s, you're still figuring out who you are, and it's easier to make friendship, quote unquote friendships and acquaintances with a wide range of people. And as you get older, the pyramid becomes narrower towards the apex, and you've learned who you are, and you've learned, you know, who you want to be friends with and who maybe doesn't isn't a good fit, and there may be a lot less of them, but the quality of the friendships are deeper and more profound and more specific, I find. I mean, I don't think that most people need dozens and dozens of friends. I mean, if you can have, three or four really good close friends, that's a blessing. And that doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of other positive acquaintances and people that you like and that you interact with. But, I think to have a couple of really special friends as you get older, and especially if you maintain them longitudinally, through decades, and that's something to be cherished.
Something, I have some friends that I've known literally since elementary school. As a matter of fact, since
Yeah,
kindergarten.
me too.
You do too, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And as life's gone on, I still talk to all of them.
Hmm.
And each of us has different stories to unfold. One of my friends actually was the chief veterinarian at San Diego Zoo for many, many years, for like
What
40
an
years.
interesting job.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. It was he was there both there and also the head of the animal safari, whatever it's called, their animal park. So
Right.
there's two different things. And he's a very kind and loving person, and
I
he's
would imagine, interacting with animals, you probably have to be.
and if, as a matter of fact, he got the chance to. Oops, hold on one second. We're going to go to break, but you and I will keep talking. The radio has to go to a break. This is Robert
Okay.
Sidell. You're listening to the Gateway Show, and I'm interviewing Sean Kanan, and he's of Karate Kid fame. And that's not all. That isn't the only thing that defines him, but it's still a good reference point. So we'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned on the radio, and for those of you on Facebook and also um, on YouTube, just stay with us. It's Robert Sidell. I'll be back in a moment. Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah, I frequently talk about it on the radio or this weekly podcast, and I'll say, you never know when somebody new is going to walk into your life that may change your life, and
Yeah.
and that has come to be a maybe I'm partially co-creating that because I'm open to it, but
Oh, for sure. For sure.
it just
Yeah.
and everybody has a different function. One of my good friends is funny. He used to be a in management in casinos here in Vegas. Then he moved down to Tulum, Mexico for a while. And
Wow.
now he lived there for about 10 years, and now he's living in a different part of Mexico. But he and I talk very often, and a few times a week, and doing about the different issues we're dealing with. So he's one of those people. I have a number of, luckily, I'm very, very lucky to have a handful of people like this where I can talk about the issues I'm facing in life, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about, right? You were saying,
Yeah. Well, they have historical knowledge of who you are. They've seen, your ups, your downs. They know you well, and they're great sounding boards because, they're going to give it to you straight.
by the way, we're just about to go back in the radio, so give me about 15 seconds here.
So,
Good evening, my friends. It's Robert Sidell. It's a great, great pleasure to be with you here on this Sunday evening on the Gateway Show, live every Sunday evening, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm always learning all the time, and that's good. That's a good thing. I really do believe, my friends that are listening, that if we want to age the best we can, the more we stay engaged with learning in our lives, the better off life will turn out for us. And that means new friends, new possibilities, maybe traveling to new places, and it's just one of those things in life. It keeps our brain active, keeps our mind. People are always asking me if I'm going to retire soon, and I said, well, I don't really have plans to retire right now. I have a lot of new dreams to live as well. So, um, I have my book, The Gateway, which I think you got, Sean. Sean, I'm
I
interviewing.
did.
I already started the conversation, but for those of you that just tuned in, um, I'm interviewing Sean Kanan, and he's been a very successful actor in many different ways. Matter of fact, I was going to ask you something before we go on any further. I want to ask you a couple questions about that. There's obviously a lot of people that want to be successful actors,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Hmm.
that goes without saying. Although, like most things in life, they may not know what they really want, what they think they want, right?
Abs
That's a different issue, right?
There you go.
It's
You
e-
you hit the nail on the head.
it's just like lawyers. People might say, "Well, you got to be. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer." Well, really? But you know what? I'll say this for me as a lawyer, I've kind of created my own story in it. It's a little bit different than a lot of lawyers, and I try to get to know people real well, and it's kind of a healing function as well as a law function.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that doesn't mean other lawyers don't do something like that in their own way. But so I've been lucky to kind of find a niche like that for myself.
Hmm.
But my point is, but in general, things aren't what people think they are, as I guess what I'm trying to say.
Or often what we think they are. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we go into things in life uh, thinking it's going to be one thing and finding out that it's something very different. And whether or not that becomes a positive or a negative, I think has a lot to do with your overall outlook on life and your openness to accept new experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's yes, there's the story, isn't it? See, my dad lived to 99 and a half, and
Wow.
and he when he was 92, he went to Antarctica. So he lived a very active life, and he was also blessed with good health. And so, and I realize people get very different cards dealt to them related to health. I mean, part of it's one big part of it's related to us, and there is
Hmm.
another part what we are dealt. So it's a little bit of both.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but it's and then we're all making choices. Sometimes we might understand the choices, and sometimes we don't. Right? I mean, it's just
Right. Right.
um, and but the bottom line though is that my dad kept excited about life. And in it, even through his 80s, he was always looking for the next trip, next seminar, because he was a practicing doctor. He practiced medicine actively till he was 85 and semi-actively till he was 90.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, that just happened to be his story. And I have a brother that actually retired younger who's a doctor, but he's also taken to a lot of traveling. He does travels. I mean, he does photography um, safaris where you just go to take pictures, right? And
Wow. That
he,
sounds incredible.
yeah, he has a lot of fun with that. And then I look at my life, and I have had a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun things. I like to go out and meet people. I
Mm.
got to go down to Mexico City and meet Miss Mexico about a year ago and interview her, and that was fun. And it's kind of fun this journey of life, the magic. I went down and met Joel Osteen last year, and that was kind of fun. He's one of the leading spiritual motivational speakers in the world today.
Sure,
And
sure. Well, you
and
touched on something. You said that your father remained interested, and I always tell. Um, I coach a lot of acting students, young actors, and I say the secret to becoming an interesting actor is to be an interesting human being. And how do you become an interesting human being? By becoming an interested human being, by being curious and curious both about yourself, your own personal growth and self-awareness, about other people, the world around you. And when you remain engaged and interested, I think that's a big component of what keeps us going, what keeps us learning and keeps us young.
I'm I all can say is I'm with you on that because I mean I 100%. If you said to me my journey now is to sit there and watch TV and maybe whatever, you know, every night and do nothing else. There's nothing wrong with watching
Right,
TV. Some I do. I
right.
enjoy. I enjoy it. There's a few things I do like to
Me,
watch.
me
But
too.
yeah, there are. There's some fun things that are entertaining, and I also watch too much. I don't want to see too much news shows, but
Yeah,
but it's still interesting anyway.
yeah.
Wait, okay. Just oh, okay. My son had to make. I don't know. You know what he did? Had to make some kind of adjustment anyway. But anyway, so I just think if you can keep a passion about life, it can work
Mm.
better. So what would you say? Why do you think you have been a successful actor when many people dream of that but really haven't been?
Um, I think there's several reasons. I'm pretty tenacious. Acting is an incredibly difficult profession. You know, you go to law school, you finish law school, you pass the bar, you're going to get to be an attorney. Whether you wind up being a low-level attorney or a high-powered attorney, there's a lot of different variables and things that go into that, right? But acting is one of those deals where you can give 100% and still come up, with zero for a career. And unfortunately, it happens to a lot of people. I've been fortunate that I've stayed in the game. I've had times when uh, I was out of work for long periods of time, And those periods are when you really start to question yourself. And as I've gotten older, my philosophy has really shifted. And I stay in the process, not the results. I'm a huge proponent of, if you want results, ignore them. And that doesn't mean don't plan for the future, and it doesn't mean don't keep your eye on, what it is that you're going after. But I choose to spend my time on refining the habits that go into the process that I need to be an effective actor. I think the other thing too, and it wasn't always the case with me, but it's become the case as I've gotten older. Talent is a gift from God, but it can be a curse. If you rely solely on talent without hustle, you're not going to succeed. You may succeed for a while, but you're not going to succeed over the long term. And I think that I've been blessed with certain talent, but I've matched it with a drive to take action and a lot of hustle. And I haven't always been the first choice. As a matter of fact, I wasn't the first choice for Karate Kid 3. I've been the second choice many times, probably third or fourth, but I've stayed in the game and I've stayed committed and I've continually worked to improve myself as an actor. And I think that is a lot of what I attribute my success to.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, that tenacity, yeah. I'm afraid to say that's nobody wants to talk about that too much. It doesn't sound exciting, does it? Tenacity doesn't seem exciting. But
No, but you know what? If most success is like an iceberg. People see the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water. They don't see the iceberg that goes down 5 times deeper. That's the sacrifice, the self-discipline, the pain, the frustration, the rejection, all of the things that you have to continually overcome to, to have that little piece of ice sticking out of the top. And that's the stuff, that's the crucible. That's where the steel is forged, in the crucible of adversity and trial and error and all that sort of stuff.
I like it's very poetic language you got going there. I like that. The crucible. No, but it's true. I mean,
I could say or sing how the sausage is made,
no,
but
well, no, I like the way you said it better. No, no, it's 100% true. I mean, it's sort of funny. My wife and I, my wife has worked with me in my office for a long, long time.
Mm,
And she comes and goes. I mean, she sometimes goes down at 6 in the morning for a few hours, and I mean, she just shows up all the time down there. So nobody else sees that most of the time.
right,
And the same with me. I've sat in the office many evenings with her, including this very last week, going through files and stuff like that. But there's a
right.
lot of, you know what? But there's also a lot of good stuff in it all. That's a lot of fun too. Well, maybe it's all part of it. By the way, one of the things my dad taught us about success is that I remember once. How did he? I wish he get. I'm trying to remember exactly how he explained it to me. But anyway, the pride of a job well done, and it being, especially with things nobody sees, right?
Yes.
That is what lets you enjoy your life.
Because you feel like you've earned it and you don't have imposter syndrome. I always feel
Exactly. No,
badly.
no,
I always
exactly. Exactly.
I always think about young actors that experience enormous success right out of the gate. And uh, it's not that I want to say I feel badly for them, but um, there's a lot to be said for having to endure the slings and arrows that lead up to the success of a career, because you learn a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? I've learned. I don't look at things as failures. I look at them as teachers, and because of that, I never lose. I win. I either win or I learn. And a lot of that learning comes from, difficult, challenging, often painful lessons. But when you get to the place where you can look behind you, most of the time, at least I've found, I'm thankful and appreciative for them, even
Um,
though they sound difficult at the time.
right. 100%. 100%. Hold on. We're going to go to a break again. Like I told you, it happens faster than you think here. This is
Yeah,
Robert
right.
Sidell, my friends. It's The Gateway. We're talking to Sean Kanan about he's a very successful actor. And by the way, I want to, maybe when we come back from break, we'll talk a little more about some of the other parts of his life, including being an author and speaker and things like that. But this is Robert Sidell. We're going to a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us, but we'll stay with you. For those of you who want to stay and keep listening, we'll be with you during the break too. No, it's interesting. My dad did me a huge favor, and I've thought about this a lot of times. Um, Basically, I don't know how if it was 100% planned or not, but I've become a successful person, and you know what? I did get help in different ways. I mean, emotional help and other kinds of help when I needed it, but
Right.
they didn't set me up with anything at all. I wasn't set up,
Right.
and I think that's actually been nice for me. As a matter of fact, you said you started to read my book a little bit. I talk about when I showed up in Las Vegas, really with absolutely 100% nothing.
Oh, is that the part of the story where you talk about you came to work for a company and they a law firm and then they fired oh no, it was the district attorney and they fired 200 people and then you were unemployed and then somebody called you with an offer to move into their office. That was Vegas?
That was Las Vegas, yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
that
Yeah,
you're right. That's exactly how it started. So I started, um, I started working in that office, but just doing little projects for that guy. And then it's funny because I don't know if I don't know if I mentioned it in the book or not, but his partnership broke up about 2 weeks after I started, and he came over to me and says, "This is kind of funny. I wasn't expecting this, but you know what? I'm going to now buy an office or rent it. I can't remember which he did, but and if you want to come in, I'll give you free space as long, for at least a few months until you can get your feet on the ground and start to earn a living. And then when
right.
that happens, you can start to pay me rent."
And you
So
won that big case, you said.
yeah, yeah, and then suddenly I got a case out of nowhere, and that was I think back. I remember that day very, very well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but you know what? I wonder if it really was out of nowhere. I wonder if there was a phone call where somebody said, "Hey, you know what? There's this guy and he's working hard," or somebody saw something along the line that you did, and there was a butterfly effect. I would postulate that it might not have happened entirely in a vacuum. That there was some
I'm sure that's 100% true, and I'll also say this, even beyond that, my success at this point is 100% due to the stuff you're talking about.
right,
It is that butterfly effect, and that's
right,
actually, by the way, one of the very rewarding things for me at this point. It's kind of surprising. Well, it's halfway surprising. It isn't really, but I'm sort of like almost like a country doctor or country lawyer in a way. I have people showing up all the time that I first represented their parents and they were only 6 years old. So,
it's amazing.
and now they come to me as a parent, and then and they have kids now, and then I'm representing them, and it happens all the time. And so, okay, we're just about to come back on the radio. Just one second. Hold on. Good evening, my friends. It's Robert Sidell. Great, great pleasure to be here this Sunday night on Labor Day weekend, by the way. Yeah, it's fun. 2025. And you know what? It's a great, great pleasure to be here. It just is. And I'm having a lot of fun interviewing Sean Kanan. I'm learning from him. He's a very successful actor. I'm saying it only, I don't want to keep belaboring it. In fact, I'll have to ask him to what extent it bothers him or not. But he sort of claimed to fame initially, anyway, was working in The Karate Kid, in the third, is it Karate Kid 3, I guess they called it, and then also in
Hmm.
Cobra Kai. And I remember watching, I probably watched both of them, I'm almost positive. But I definitely watched Cobra Kai, and that was definitely fun, an interesting show. And I do remember as soon as I looked at your face yesterday, it was still emblazoned in my memory from watching that show, which is not very common that happens. But by the way, a little nice compliment to you is you still look like that person. Not everybody
Thank you.
does, and that's another whole different issue. But it's like so it's fun, and we were just talking before the break is and what I think a lot of people, maybe even younger people more today, but maybe everybody always thinks this. I think a lot of people think, gosh, in fact, I have a doctor friend who used to always say, I wish I was a trust fund baby. That's what I needed to be, a trust fund baby.
Oh man, no.
Well, I know that's the problem. It's not what people think it is it?
Mm,
Uh, I actually have known,
no, I wouldn't. No, I don't think so.
I had a chance to work with a big law firm when I got out of law school. It represented Ronald Reagan, among other famous people. I even yeah I worked just very 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 famous people, and including some very very famous actors. And I can't mention their names, but it was just everything you think of a mega firm in L.A. And you know what? I would tell you the people where things somebody tried to hand them everything. Usually they weren't that happy. Because, like you said, there
Hmm.
was none of that personal satisfaction. I made it, I figured out some way to make it.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think what we all really want in our heart, I mean, if you were given acting things, and there's every now and then you hear about an actor. I happen to think of an actress. I'm not going to mention her name, but she married a very wealthy guy, and he bought all these positions for her and everything. And but
Hmm.
I think she's actually may have since passed away. But the bottom line is that's not satisfying, right? That's not satisfying. You know who
No, I wouldn't think so.
I think is an interesting character is Harrison Ford, and I don't know him
Hmm.
personally, but um, I do mention him a little bit in my book at one point. He talks openly about the fact that when he first started acting, one of the people, have you heard this story too?
Well, I mean, he was a carpenter. I know that.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I forgot he was a carpenter, but when he came in, he was acting, and I can't even remember what show it was on. But anyway, the supervisor, the person in charge, casting director, said to him, I don't want to tell you this. I feel bad in telling you this, but don't give up your day job. You are not a talented actor.
Right.
And
Right.
I've
Well, there are
and
a lot of stories like that.
there are a lot. That's right. But suppose he believed that. He'd actually become, arguably,
Yeah.
there's only
Yeah.
what, three or four male people. You've got Tom Cruise and him,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably one of
Yeah.
the most successful, right? At least in our
Sure.
generation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Acting is one of those. It's one of those professions where you must be your biggest cheerleader. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of arrogant to think that, you're so interesting and talented that people are going to be willing to pay $20 and sit in the dark for 2 hours and watch you. But if you don't believe it, no one else is going to believe it. I'm going to tell you another story really quickly that piggybacks on what you said. Apparently, there's a famous urban legend that Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds were called into the head of the studio's office where they both had contracts. And what did he do? They looked at Clint Eastwood and they said, "You have an Adam's apple that is too big and you're never going to make it." And they looked at Burt Reynolds and they said, "You just can't act. You're never going to make it." So they're walking out in the parking lot and Burt Reynolds looked at Clint Eastwood and he goes, "At least I can learn to act." But I mean, the point is, both of those guys were phenomenal successes. Could you imagine somebody telling Clint Eastwood, "You ain't gonna make it, kid"? I mean, you know, or Arnold
Yeah, no,
Schwarzenegger with, you got to change your name, Schwarzenegger. How are you? You have to believe in yourself.
yeah, no, no. I mean, so it's almost like you say. It's almost axiomatic, including people who write successful books.
Hmm.
The first, but they get maybe 50 rejections.
Sure.
And how many of us, or one of my favorite stories, which you probably heard, is of Colonel Sanders, how he got to 65 and he said, "Hey, I can't live on my pension." And so he decided to get in his old station wagon, drove around the country with his
Hmm.
recipe, right? Recipe,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
this you could just imagine this guy driving around this old car, and and yet he was turned down. The story I've heard is he was turned down about 1,000 times, but anyway,
Yeah.
finally found somebody who said, "Yes, you can try it." And I would always, and then it did become a great success. And then
Right.
literally, and it's a true story, on his 89th birthday, he had 13,000 people to his birthday party. So, so think about this. Well, suppose somewhere halfway through that thousand rejections, he thought, well, who am I to think I can? Who wants my fried chicken anyway? There's a lot of
Right.
fried chicken out there. In fact, it's funny about fried chicken. I It's easy to start thinking that that's a saturated market, right? If you came to me today and said,
Hmm.
"Hey, I have this great new fried chicken thing," I'd say, "Well, yeah, yeah, but you and 1,000 other people, right?" But
Right.
then it's funny. I think it's is it 10 years ago roughly that Cane's chicken came out, right? What is it?
Right.
Cane's came out.
Canes and
Yeah,
Popeyes and, Frontier. There were all sorts of chicken places. There's always room in the market for something that has been done before if it's done better. You know, I
or
don't,
even uniquely, right? Even
or
uniquely.
or uniquely, right?
Yeah. So it's like somehow you got to believe in yourself. Even in my business, and right at the moment, and I'm laughing at this a little bit. There are literally billboards. I don't know if you noticed it in Vegas or not, on almost every corner for personal
Oh yeah.
opportunities.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, literally. I mean, the other day I was sitting in a traffic light. I counted 12 ads flashing on the
Mm.
screens for
They're
attorneys
everywhere.
just during the very short, whatever length of time it was for the light to change. Now,
Right.
if I were to say I'm going to be successful in that field, I would think it's impossible.
Right.
How is that going to be possible? But in fact, we are very successful, and of course, I do have a benefit at this point of having a reputation and a group of people that like me, and so that helps.
Hmm.
But the bottom line though is I could easily become scared. Oh, this is not going to work. I can't do this. But so
Right.
you got to believe in yourself. And so let me say this because we are going to run out of time, and I want to. There's a few things I want to ask you first.
Sure.
What do you suggest to people that could help them pursue their dreams and become successful, especially when the world's filled with naysayers like Harrison Ford had, or Clint Eastwood, or these other people, and or Burt Reynolds, that they could have been all talked out of their success, right?
Right. Right.
So
I think the first
what's
thing,
your key to success for that? How do you what encouragement can you give people?
well, I think you need to be clear and specific what it is that you want to accomplish and what your why is. The why is the motivating factor that drives you to achieve your goals. And if somebody says I want to be an actor and you say why, and they say, well, I want to be famous, I can guarantee they're not going to be a success. Okay. I think what I was saying about staying in the process, not the results, applies to any pursuit there is. If you remain in the present, just do what needs to be done to achieve the goal and not worry about the goal itself. I think that's a huge help. Um, I think also that it's important to find a mentor. Can you hear me, Robert?
I can hear you just fine. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay. Oh, that's okay. I didn't know if you could hear me.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
and
make
I
sure
think.
that everything was being as it should
Oh,
be.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, and I was just going
Okay.
to say the other thing is I think it's really important to try and find somebody who has achieved what you want to achieve, and if they are willing to impart some of their knowledge, listen.
So, yeah, I know Tony Robb. By the way, I asked you earlier if you've ever done anything with Tony Robbins. That's one of his big ideas all
Yeah,
the time too.
stand on
And
the shoulders of giants.
yeah, I mean, you might as well. I mean, his theory is that he has a few little sayings that I like. Success leaves clues.
Who's
I'll
yeah,
tell you something funny about Tony Robbins. I met him when he was like 24 years old. I went to his house and I came to Vegas and I showed up here. Again, I'm trying to do everything, right? So I went and walked and fire at his house, walked over to fire. And at that point, they said it was a world's record, not just me, but the group of people that were there. And we were
right,
actually on the cover of some national magazine, except you would need a microscope to see my face. But you, but he was just getting started, you know,
yeah,
and now I'm going to one of his seminars again, and I'll tell you more details if you're
incredible.
interested in
Yeah,
L.A.
please. Yeah,
He's a very unusual person. He has a very strong will for success, and he doesn't let life talk him out of it. And that's what I have to
right.
stop asking myself. Where am I letting myself be talked out of things? It's very easy. We're good at BSing ourselves, right? Is that true?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So your
For
suggestion is
sure.
get a mentor. So you willing to mentor people that want to be actors? I mean, I didn't ask you this in the beginning, and
Well,
you
I
may not
mean,
want to.
I have a pretty successful and thriving coaching business, which is both for, personal development and excellence and for actors. And people who want to work with me can go to my website, which is wavethecobra.com, and they can sign up to have time with me. And I think probably like you do pro bono work too.
Right,
And
sure.
I absolutely work with some people who maybe aren't able to afford my fees. I work with them for free because I want to pass on what it is that I have to help other people. I'm a huge proponent of service. I think service is critical to happiness and it's critical to success. And so I like to try and be of service to others whenever I can.
Well, that's the gift, and that's what I truly believe that's the case. And by the way, that's what's helped me be successful too. Um, I do a lot of free or close to free stuff for people all the time that have trouble. And then every now and then a very good case comes my way,
Exactly.
and suddenly I'm doing very well. So,
Right.
and listen, I have a chapter in my book that when you look to God for your source, it changes things. Now, mind you, I'm no different than anybody else. That doesn't mean I can't be insecure, all sorts of different things I can be. There's
Sure.
been times I've been
Sure.
very terrified and afraid and all sorts of things. Personal injury is a constantly changing business. It's funny. We're going to have to go to a break in a second. But I was going to say, I drive a car right now, a Tesla, that has self driving built in. And I'm telling you, add 5 years to that, and if all cars are going to be sold with self driving, it may be the accidents are reduced by like 90%. So my business, there's a good chance it's going to change a lot sooner or later. Now, how long it's going to take, I don't know. So, I'm
That
going to
is
have,
interesting.
yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, that's my job as a parent. I believe for my kids, I'm always trying to say, okay, kids, life's going to change. That's why you need to find. I like to say you need to find a connection to God, some way or another, and it
Absolutely.
has to be real too. It can't just be a phony thing.
Really quickly, it's like the Darwin quote. It's not the most intelligent, it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable. You have to
I
be able to
like that.
adapt.
I'm going to tell my kids that when I get off the show here tonight. That I heard that before, but I forgot about it a lot. It's a constant game. I mean, if you'd asked
Yeah.
me when I was working at that firm that represented President Reagan. By the way, this is my friend Janet. You probably see her face on there. And can you see her? Can you see somebody on there still?
Maybe. Let's see here. There, I can. Hi, Janet. How are you?
I'm good.
Janet is a
Nice
Thank
to
very
you.
see you.
sweet person that I've known for a long time, and in fact, I say this frequently to people, but she kind of took care of my dad the last several years of his life and listened to him making jokes to her, and every kind of joke possible actually in the last few years of her life. Uh,
Yeah, it was fun.
I got to say this. Somehow I think you'll get a little bit of entertainment out of this too, Sean. Um, so a week before my dad died, I was standing there by the side of his bed, and we all knew his time was coming because he couldn't eat anymore. And so,
Mm.
but he was still in a good mood for a lot of that time, and so this neighbor came by and says, "Is there anything we can do for you?" He goes, "Yeah, see that girl there? Get her to spend the night with me."
See, he remained interested.
Yeah, he remained
Yeah, he
interested.
did. Yeah.
And this is the confirmation, right, Janet?
I
Yes, he
love it.
did.
That's funny.
But he
That's
did.
great.
He did actually. Oh, good. There's Ernie, my dear friend Ernie.
Ernie.
This is Robert Sidell. And by the way, my dear friends, excuse me, Janet Miller and Ernie Martin, and then also a new friend, Sean Kanan, who has played a lot of fun roles, and I bet you would be a fun person. I wanted to ask you separately, but did you ever watch that show, The Kaminsky Method, with Michael
I did.
Douglas?
I really liked it.
I
Yeah,
figured since you're a coach, an acting coach yourself, you
yeah,
probably would like that.
I did.
I loved that show. It was fun. I thought his
It's
acting was
terrific.
great. I think he's
He's
great.
terrific.
But
I'm a fan.
you're a fan too. That's fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to let Janet share a thought with us. Oh, so by the way, before I do one more thing, so we don't get sidetracked, give them your website or anything else one more time, Sean. So if people want to look you up, they can.
Sure. You can follow me on Instagram at Sean.Kanan, or you can uh, sign up for coaching or any of my books or anything like that at wayofthecobra.com.
All right, and that sounds, and he's somebody that's actually succeeded in acting, which I'm sure a lot of coaches probably aren't in that role, right? We don't want to talk about that though.
There's some.
So, all right, Janet, share something with us right tonight.
Okay, I'll be happy to. So I'm going to read from the Daily Word, and it's heeding divine guidance makes me unstoppable. It is so much easier to walk with the wind at my back. I feel supported and propelled in the direction I choose to travel. Divine guidance is like the wind at my back. It is the nudge I feel urging me to continue along my path, the affirmative nod from within that I am indeed moving in the right direction, and the ease I feel when my efforts are supported. I feel the presence of God when I feel in sync with my guidance. I strengthen my awareness of the divine connection and spend time in silence. I trust my guidance will keep flowing to me as my intuition and inspiration, and through serendipity. I affirm I am divinely guided and abundantly blessed.
That's beautiful, Janet. Beautiful thoughts. We all have to follow.
The prayer is about turning adversity into positive. Lord, thank you for giving us this blessed new day. Guide us to see and acknowledge divine spirit's love and light in our hearts, within us, and in others. Lord, we pray to leave behind scars, failures, judgments, mistakes, setbacks from yesterday's and the past. We pray to move forward, to stay focused, and taking actions to move forward, to see new beginnings, renewals, healing in each one of us, to make right decisions using God-given wisdom for the success and better living of all people in our nation and around the world. We continue sharing our daily miracles in joy, love, and happiness to fulfill our mission in this adventurous life, creating heaven on earth. And so it is. Amen.
So, Ernie, we could hear you, and it came over the phone. We became creative here for a minute. And so your prayer got out to people. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and
Thank you.
hang up the phone for a second, but your prayer did get to everybody, and that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But you could stay on for a second longer. So all I want to say is, and that's the first time I think I've ever had to do that, but you know what? It just is a reminder, where there's a will, there's a way, right? And
Absolutely.
that's what we got to remember our whole life. And just when we think, yeah, I just have to. That's all we can do. I was in Boy Scouts in my life. And did you say you were in Boy Scouts? Did I hear you say that? No, maybe it was somebody different.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, okay. It was somebody different. You know, and I actually became an Eagle Scout. That I'm sure with a lot of
Wow.
encouragement from my dad, believe me. But the bottom of my parents. But you know, the thing I've learned after all that time is, if you want to get to your destination, like you said, there's a lot of times you're on a hill and you don't want to keep hiking.
Right.
And if you sit down too long, you'll never get back up again, right? So,
Correct.
so I just want to say, but Janet is a beautiful friend of mine. So is Ernie. Like I said, it's the first time we've ever had this particular problem. But Ernie, I want to thank you so much. I think you could still hear me. You don't have to say anything because for some reason the sound's not right, Ernie. But the bottom line is, thank you so much, Ernie, for that beautiful prayer. And Janet, thank you for your positive thoughts. And Sean, I really want to thank you for taking the time with us. And if anybody wants to reach out to Sean, I'm sure he's a wealth of wisdom in this whole area. And by the way, he has a number of videos, including a TED Talk, which is nice. I listened to it. And so he's a very creative young man. And so now for everybody else out there, I just want to say this. You know, I have a couple simple thoughts. God is good. Miracles are real, and the best is yet to come. And if you and I can
Absolutely.
keep those thoughts, you know what? Then we can keep rising up, even in the face of adversity. Even we, you know, and just like you've had to face many times, Sean, so is Janet, and so is Ernie, and so have I. So I wish you all the best, everybody listening on the radio and every other format they happen to hear this now or later. And I just want you to know we sincerely wish you all a beautiful, successful, happy future. So God bless you all. Thank you so much, Sean, for taking
Thank
time
you.
out of your busy
My
schedule.
pleasure.
And
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting your friends, and I hope we had the opportunity to do this again. And I won't say goodbye, Robert. Just say I'm going to finish your book, and until we see each other again.
That's perfect. I love that. That's good.
Perfect.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. Until we
All
see each
right.
other again. So God bless everybody out there, including everybody that we're talking right here. And we will all be
Bye.
connected again. God bless you
Take
all.
care, all. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.